A mom walked up to me at a conference a few weeks ago, and I haven't been able to stop thinking about what she said. She told me about her daughter, the diets, the supplements, the therapy, everything they'd been doing. And then her voice cracked, and she whispered, "Sometimes I wonder if any of it even matters." And I felt that in my chest because I've stood in that exact same spot more times than I want to admit. And what I told her next is something I wish someone told me years ago. It's backed by massive Harvard studies, some fascinating neuroscience, and a concept that completely rewired how I think about my son's progress. So stay with me on this one, because there's a specific mechanism in your brain that is actively working against you right now. And until you understand how it works, it's almost impossible to escape it. When my son was first diagnosed with autism, I did what most of us do. I set goals, big ones, eye contact, new foods, full sentences, being able to take him out of the house without people thinking we were kidnapping him. And every single day, I measured where he was against where I wanted him to be. And you know what that felt like? Driving to the horizon. No matter how fast I went, I never got closer. He'd say a word, instead of celebrating, my brain would immediately move the target. Okay, a word, but when will he say a sentence? He sat at the table when we try something new. It was like a GPS that recalculates the second you arrive. You've reached your destination. Just kidding, keep driving. And I did this for years and it nearly broke me. Here's what no one told me. The problem wasn't my son's progress. The problem was how I was measuring it. There's a concept from a psychologist named Benjamin Hardy and an author named Dan Sullivan. They call it the gap in the gain. And it's so simple it almost sounds too obvious. But stay with me because the science is anything but simple. Most of us measure like this. We picture the ideal, where we want our child to be. Then we look at where they are now and we measure the distance between those 2 points. That distance, that's the gap. And living in the gap will crush you because the ideal is always moving. It's not a fixed point. Every time your child hits a milestone, your brain creates a new one, a new finish line that's always just out of reach. Here's how to think about it. Your brain has something that works like a thermostat in your house. It hits 72, clicks off, then kicks right back on the second it drops half a degree. Your brain does the exact same thing with satisfaction. Your child hits a milestone, you feel a brief flash of relief, maybe even joy, and then click, reset. What's next? What's still missing? This is why some of the most devoted, hardworking parents I know feel the most defeated. Not because their child isn't progressing, because their brain won't let them see it. And here's where it gets wild. There's a part of your brain that works like a smoke detector. Its only job is to detect mismatches. When your reality doesn't match your expectation, it screams. And right now, you might be stuck. The alarm is blaring 24/7 because you keep measuring towards a finish line that doesn't exist. And your body doesn't know the difference between my child hasn't hit this milestone yet and there's a fire in the building. It floods you with the same stress chemicals either way. And over time, that chronic stress drains your energy, clouds your thinking, makes you feel hopeless, even when real progress is happening right in front of you. But here's the thing. When you flip that measurement, when you deliberately look backward at how far you've come, your brain does something completely different. It releases dopamine, the chemical tied to motivation, learning, and reward. And that dopamine doesn't just make you feel better in the moment, it creates a feedback loop. Your brain starts connecting the work you're doing with the actual results, which makes it easier to keep going, which creates more progress, which triggers more dopamine. One direction drains the tank and the other fills it back up. And the difference isn't what's happening with your child, it's which direction you're looking. Now, this isn't just feel-good advice. Harvard proved it. A professor named Teresa Amabile analyzed over 12,000 daily journal entries from people working on meaningful projects. 12,000 entries, 26 teams, and the number one driver of motivation and happiness, it wasn't big breakthroughs, it was simply recognizing small progress. They called it the progress principle. But here's what stopped me cold. Setbacks were devastating. The negative impact of a setback was far more powerful than the positive impact of a win. If you're only looking at what's left to accomplish, you're feeding yourself a steady diet of setbacks, even when your child's getting better, even when you're making progress. That's not me guessing, that's Harvard. So let me bring this back to the mom at the conference, because after I explained all this, I asked her one question. What could your daughter do a year ago? She paused. She couldn't sit through a meal. She wouldn't look at her brother. She screamed every time we got in the car. And now she went quiet. She sits with us most nights. She looks at her brother sometimes in the car. She doesn't scream anymore. I let that hang there. That's not nothing working, I said. That's a completely different child. And her whole face changed right there at the booth. She had been so locked in on where her daughter wasn't that she completely missed how far her daughter had come. And I've done this with my own son more times than I can count. And here's what I want you to do tonight. Grab your phone, open your notes app, and write down 3 things your child can do now that they couldn't do 6 months, 12 months ago. They don't have to be big. Maybe they tolerate a new food. Maybe they said a word that they never said before. Maybe they had one fewer meltdown this week. Maybe they looked at you when you said their name. Write it down. That's a gain. That's proof of what you're doing matters. Use your goals to aim. Use your past to measure. Aim forward forward, measure backward. And if you want to stack even more of those small wins, if you want to give your child's body the raw materials it needs so you even have more gains to write down for next month, that's exactly why we built the Core 4 protocol. Gut support, brain nutrition, and the building blocks their body is asking for. If you're interested, take a look at the link in bio. Whether you try our products or not, please do this exercise tonight and do it every night you can. It might change more than you expect. Your child isn't stuck, and neither are you. You might just be looking in the wrong direction. Do me a favor and drop a gain in the comments, a win you almost missed. I'd love to hear it. You're the kind of parent who fights for their kid, and that's why you're still watching this. I'm Marty. Follow for more. I'm rooting for you.